Welcome to the Consulting Leader. We talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Deri, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Very good to be here. Thank you for having me on.
It is a bit of a special issue, special episode today. So let's tweak it a bit. Deri, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Deri Hughes. I'm founder, managing director of Honeycomb Consulting Skills Training. I'm a consultant by background, started at Bain 20 odd years ago, have been in consulting the rest of my career. And these days I help consulting team leaders develop exceptional teams.
Then let's talk about exactly that. It's funny, I've interviewed about 180 boutique consulting firm owners in the last 3 months. You've been helping them specifically, this type of consultants for quite some time now. What are the things that you've noticed boutique consulting firms simply cannot shortcut if they want to grow?
They want to grow their revenue, grow their top line. Yeah, it's a question that we get a lot, and we see a lot of people kind of struggling to build this out. The foundational part of this is the expertise, the delivery quality. Like you can't get away. You're not going to live very long as a consulting firm if you're not delivering excellent value for clients, and you can do that consistently. And loads of firms have that, right? If they've survived long enough for us to be talking to them anyway, they've got decent delivery quality. But the two bits that I think are really critical on top of that are building networks, individuals in the firm building their networks, nurturing their relationships, and that just takes time. You can't shortcut that. You've got to put the yards in, build the habits around that. And then the third bit, and many firms struggle to get to this point, is building really strong personal reputation, building the authority, being known as being an expert is one thing, being known as an expert is a different thing. And that just takes real time to build, but it unlocks so much value. If you want to get to that kind of holy grail of having growth come to you and inbound leads knocking on your door, then that's the primary tool to get there. So those are the big things: expertise, network, personal reputation are the big things that just you can't cut through those quickly.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm going to ask you how boutique consulting firm owners can, further develop into those different areas. For the expertise one, I'll say this because that's a question I ask very often on the show. Like, how do you market? How do you get clients? 90% of people will say referrals. For me, that's not a marketing channel. It's the byproduct of doing a good work. More like, if you're not getting referrals, it means clients are not sufficiently happy to the point that they would recommend you to people they know to help them the same way you've helped them. So I guess that's a good indicator in your market and in your current consulting firm. If you're not getting like consistent referrals each and every year, there's probably like an expertise or maybe a way of delivering it that needs to be fixed. Talk to me about networking. How, in a day and age post-COVID, where a lot has gone from physical in person to remote, right? As this interview is, how do you recommend help boutique consulting firms develop a network that actually drives business?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's really in the kind of digital age, it's a lot easier in some ways. Like back in the days when it used to be networking meant you had to go out for lunch with people, you had to go out for dinner with people, you had to be physically in person at conferences to nurture relationships. So like, there's just much harder to do that. So the other thing I think that these days is it really lends itself to those of us who lean more introverted to build and maintain those connections. So if like you're terrified at the idea of walking into an industry conference and just going to chat to people, and I'd say like a majority of consultants find that scarier than they do find it energizing. Like the digital interactions really help. I think the key thing for me, the thing that people get wrong with networking is they have the wrong mindset around it. They start from a place of, I've got to go and like try and find some work. They're in a state of desperation. They're trying to find a lead, and they fall into what I call kind of prospecting. like, oh, I'm going to go and reach out to everybody quickly because my pipeline's a little bit dry. And with networking, the key is to really value the relationship as the goal in itself, and say, I've got a set of people that I'd love to have a good relationship with, and I have the confidence that if those people know about me, if they trust me, if I've got a level of emotional intimacy with them, then when they've got the problem that I solve, they're going to give me a call. And that takes so much of the fear out of that networking activity, of the habit of getting in touch with people. Because if you say, I'm just going to get in touch with someone to build a good relationship with them, to help them in some way, and know that down the line they're going to come to me as the first person they call when they've got the problem that I help solve, that's a big part of it. And then the other bit is just the habit to do that consistently, using your CRM properly, getting a good set of templates to reach out to people, to have those conversations, just taking a lot of the pain out of that, so that it just becomes a disciplined habit to stay in touch with people. And do that for long enough, and you will get to a network of people who know about you, trust you, and they'll pick up the phone when they've got a problem. That's the goal, really.
Where do you recommend those boutique consulting firm owners go? Like, obviously there's going to be CRM. I like it. Each interaction should be documented and logged in 100%. LinkedIn is going to probably be one of the main places. Do you have other areas or places where you recommend your clients go to actually network with the right people?
So the way I think about it is, firstly, you've got to define what the right person is. And that's the people that have the problem that you're able to solve, and they're willing to pay for solving that problem. That's the kind of core of the network. And then figure out where those people are putting their attention at the moment. Like, where are they spending time? Now, in most cases, people are still sleeping a bit on LinkedIn. Like, they don't understand the power of LinkedIn. They don't understand how people are using LinkedIn. So being visible and connecting with people through LinkedIn is definitely a powerful tool for most consulting clients. Not all, but for most. And I think with that, your personal network on LinkedIn is probably way richer than you realize. So we often recommend that people export their LinkedIn contacts and do a proper review of who do they know in there, where are they now. We've all lost track of which jobs people have moved to. Every single time we've taken someone through that kind of exercise, they've identified 5 to 10 people where they've gone, oh wow, I didn't know they were there now. Like, I've lost track of them, and they could potentially be someone that I could help. So just that kind of looking at your current network is super powerful. And then if people are in community groups, going to conferences, attending like events, digital events that you go to, then just find where they are and go and chat to them and build a relationship with them. There's loads of like niche communities in particular areas, but that very much depends on the type of end consultant and end client that you're trying to target. Figure out where your people are. That's the key to it.
I like that. The funny thing is, so it's going to depend on the industry, but we've had some interesting successes with some of our clients in Reddit communities, Chorus forums. And so we mainly go for school, so SKOOL, but like there are communities of your ICPs out there, like they are. And it's about getting into those communities, providing value first. I think that's the thing maybe consultants still struggle a bit with, since they haven't done really lots of content, most of them. But like those communities are out there, they are on the internet. The way of interacting is obviously a bit different, but definitely some good place to hang out. Talk to me about personal reputation, and I like it because it's going to be obviously intertwined with networking. How do you develop a good personal reputation, especially in the age of AI, Deri? What do you recommend?
Yeah, in the age of AI is an interesting one, actually. I had a consultant try and pitch me on something just this week, actually, where they were trying to pitch a kind of quick diagnostic of our go-to-market efforts. And what they offered to do this kind of free diagnostic, and what they sent back was so clearly 100% AI generated and 80 or 90% wrong, because they hadn't bothered to do some basic checks on whether it was accurate or not, that their use of AI for their own kind of process efficiency completely trashed their reputation with me. So I went from might be interesting to never, absolutely not. So authenticity and human expertise still true. Remember that the base layer: expertise, network, personal reputation. Like that, if you're not bringing your expertise, your human unique expertise, and then using AI as a tool to build on that and be more efficient, then you're causing yourself a lot of problems. So that's the AI question. In terms of like how you build personal reputation. So yes, networking, having conversations with people, building relationships, that builds reputation, but that is only ever going to help you get to people that kind of know you or are one step removed from you already. And the holy grail is to become what we call a visible authority out there, where you are known as the go-to person on the particular problem that you solve for a particular group of people. And there's a load of stuff that goes in that, but the foundation of it really is consistently sharing your expertise in public forums. So, I mean, again, LinkedIn is a classic and powerful way of doing that. A lot of B2B buyers are lurkers on LinkedIn. They're reading stuff, they're engaging with things. And if you're putting your expertise out there, then they're going to start to see it. And if you're doing it consistently, and consistently means over a long period of time, it means running things like webinars where you can get access to lots of people. It means coming on other people's podcasts like I'm doing right now to be seen and as an expert in my domain with other people that are interested. So the core of it is to consistently put your expertise out there. Make sure your thinking's crisp. Make sure you're always delivering value, not trying to sell. You're delivering value to the person you want to help, and that you're doing that over and over again. And wherever your people are paying attention, get in front of that attention. And that does take some time, but my personal experience has been, once you get to a certain level, then the phone starts ringing and people start booking time in your diaries, and you don't need to do outbound sales. So if you lean more introverted, then putting yourself out there, putting your expertise out there, sharing a bit more than you're comfortable sharing is much, much easier than going to conferences. And ultimately, it's the thing that's going to start getting those inbound leads, which is, as I say, like the holy grail of consulting firm growth, is to have the phone ringing with people that want your help.
Amen to that. It's so funny, your example about AI. I think, and consulting firms included, everybody is trying to automate and leverage AI and do more at scale, but they forgot that you still need to do a good job. And like, you get those gazillions of outreaches of like easy fix or analysis or audit with some AI tools like the ones you mentioned, but not only, like to make it like very relatable to consultants. LinkedIn content, right? It's never been easier to create some content, written and visually, by the way. But yet, when you ask consultants who've been doing this for the last 2 years, thanks to ChatGPT, and you ask them, hey, how much opportunities did you get from this? It's like, I don't know. I'm like, right, so that probably means not much, and you're also not even tracking. So having all the systems in place to track, being able to attribute, and then provide that high value qualitative content, and all the interactions that you have is still absolutely key.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the trust equation, so the famous book, The Trusted Advisor by David Meister, which is a bit of a Bible for a lot of consultants, and the trust equation says that your trustworthiness is a function of your credibility, your reliability, your emotional intimacy with the other person, all divided by how self-orientated you are. And if you think about like that example of somebody just chucking over some AI generated stuff that they haven't validated, like credibility is shot, reliability is through the floor, there's no emotional intimacy because they haven't cared about me at all, and their self-orientation is sky high because they're optimizing for doing as little as possible rather than for helping me. And so in trust equation terms, when you use AI like that, you are trashing all 4 elements of the trust equation. And I just don't do that to yourselves, because it's a waste of everybody's time.
It's so funny you'd mentioned that book. Actually, Charles Green, one of the co-author of this book, was on the show, and we are now working with the person who took over his company. But that's funny you mentioned it. I think you nailed it. It's like trust and authority is still at the center and the periphery of the consulting work, and you're not going to get more business by overlooking those aspects, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
Talk to me about referrals and acquisition was one of the topic, Deri. So what skills, when we know that most consultants rely mainly on referrals, if not only, what skills does relying on referrals prevent you from developing and that you should be aware of, in your opinion?
Well, skills does relying on referrals prevent you from developing? Yeah, great question. And you're right. Like it's the top channel for most firms, and there's just on that for a sec. There's a really interesting set of data that the Consultancy Growth Network do their bench press report every year, and they survey kind of 300 odd consulting firm leaders, and they consistently referrals come out as the top channel there, whether referrals from clients or referrals from other network members, and other members of their personal networks, not members of the growth network. And then but none of them, or hardly any of them, have a kind of proactive referral strategy. So I think in terms of the skills that relying on referrals stop you from developing, so depends a little bit how you're using referrals. So if you have a proactive referral strategy, then you're still stopping yourself from developing that personal reputation and putting yourself out there, becoming a visible authority, because you're focusing solely on your personal network. So that's a gap anyway. What relying on referrals does do is it really doubles down on this need to deliver client value, because people won't refer you unless they believe in the value. If you're really reactive with your referral strategy, which is where most firms tend to be, is like their basic growth philosophy is we'll deliver great work and hope that we get some more of it, either from that client or via a referral, then you're also stopping yourself from developing this skill around network nurturing and really active farming, really active account management and account expansion. So if you're just reliant on referrals, you're not thinking about account planning, account growth, the different ways that you can help an existing client or their colleagues, and innovating your proposition. You're kind of just sitting back waiting for someone to say, oh, I mentioned you to person X and you did great work for us, so I'm sure you do great work for them. There's a whole bunch of things that you're creating a lot of risk in your business if you are reliant on just referrals, because those referrals can dry up relatively quickly.
So talk to me about how one can actually proactively get more referrals. I'm asking you this because I think the reason a lot of consultants stay within the realm of referrals is because they've grown their business so far thanks to them. Maybe they even tried some marketing channel and new acquisition channels, but they got burned. Multiple reasons for that. Not going to get into the details, but point being, they tried, whereas maybe there was just more to be done with referrals themselves. So what do you recommend one can implement in order to get more referrals, nurture those referrals, get those referrals to activate and buy faster? Like, do you have some mechanisms that you recommend boutique consulting firm owners implement?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different things there. So firstly is like make it a deliberate strategic priority that you're going to put in place a referral strategy and drive it as a key priority. And that means setting targets, tracking metrics, like how many referrals have you asked for, how many referrals have you got, what was the result of those referrals. So you've got to track it if you're serious about it. And then in order to make it possible, if you put yourself in the shoes of the person you're asking for a referral as the referrer, like what's going to make it, one, possible, and two, comfortable for them to make that referral? So firstly, they need to really cleanly understand who it is that you help and the problem that you solve. You need a really punchy, clear statement of what your proposition is effectively, because otherwise they can't think of who they might refer you to. So that's thing one. If you just say, the classic way is like you've just closed out a project and you bite the bullet and you bravely ask, oh, is there anyone else in your firm that might need this help? And they kind of go, oh, I'm racking my brains a little bit, and they struggle to think of anyone. So one, make it really clear who the type of person is that you're trying to help. Two, make it easy for them to ask the question. So that could be that you've already identified a bunch of people that you'd like an introduction to, and you're asking them about specific people that you know they know, and you're asking them to make that introduction in a specific way. So you do the work. You don't rely on the referrer doing the work to think for you. So you prep that in advance. The even better way of doing that, and this is something I learned from David Fields, was rather than asking for a referral that feels like a sales pitch, again, put the relationship at the heart of it. So what you're asking for is an introduction to build a relationship with somebody, not an introduction to sell some work to somebody. And that really de-risks it from the point of view of the referrer. We've probably all been asked to make an introduction to someone before, right? And it's a bit cringe because you're like, well, I'm gonna use my relationship, and I'm worried that this person's going to try and sell to them, and like that might be really awkward. And then I'm going to put my friend in a difficult situation where they might have to say no to this person, and do I really trust them that much? And it just creates all these barriers to being able to make the referral. If you frame it, and David calls this the transfer of interest, if you frame it as like, here's somebody who's doing some really cool, interesting stuff in your space, and you as my advisor have advised me on some really cool, interesting ideas, I think the two of you should have a conversation because you'll both have interest in the same domain, and I think you'll get on well. And if you make the referral at that level with that kind of introduction, it takes so much of the heat out of it, so much of the awkwardness out of it, and you have a conversation. And chances are the person they've introduced you to, who is doing a load of cool, interesting stuff in an area that's related to your expertise, is the type of person who's attracting investment and managing projects and changing things up and might need some expert advice around that. So that my recommendation is just be super clear on who it is that you want to talk to, and try and de-risk it, take the heat out of it as much as possible for the person you're asking, and then track how many times you're asking people and what the result is. Be very deliberate about how you're approaching your referral strategy.
Amen to that. I think so. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to say one more thing because I think it's so important to double down on this, Deri. If you find a mechanism where you're actually the one providing value to the referred, the referrer will be like, yeah, absolutely. I want my friends, my colleagues, people I know to get the same benefits. Not going to get into some of those mechanisms, but there are some that you can use and leverage, and this works extremely well.
Yeah.
So one thing that I like to say is referrals are great to get started. You should keep on getting some each and every year as a boutique consulting firm. But then once you really want to scale, you need a predictable leads generation and pipeline. So what skills do those boutique consulting firm owners need to develop, Deri, in order to put in place a marketing mix that actually works?
Yeah, so the key thing for this is you've got to think about this systematically, right? And so much of this is about habits and consistency over time. And so when we think about kind of capabilities, we think about skills, and we think about behaviors, and we think about knowledge. And this is one of those areas where the skills is part of it, but the behaviors is key. So if you're thinking at a firm level about what your firm needs to do in terms of like basically building a consistent marketing engine that predictably spits out leads, then you've got to think about what are the behaviors that lead to that. So referral strategy might be a building block of that. Deliberate network nurturing and tracking that might be a building block of that. And that requires you to encourage your team to build the habits around contacting people who haven't been contacted for a month or 3 months or 6 months, whatever the right cadence is for that group of people. The skill of writing a good email, the skill of holding an exploratory conversation that prioritizes the relationship and helping people rather than trying to sell, the skill of spotting an opportunity and consistently turning that into an opportunity conversation that's separate from the relationship conversation. And then the kind of harder skill is around, if you're trying to build personal reputation, how do you generate a consistent stream of content that is put out there? Because that's what people need to engage with. And content can be as simple as a 2-line post on LinkedIn. It could be a 5-minute selfie video. It could be an article. It could be a webinar. It could be a full research report. Most consultants can produce most of those things to a decent level of quality. At least they've got the ideas, because all you're doing is thinking about, what is the value I give my clients like every day? What are the conversations I'm having with clients every day? What are my beliefs about this domain of expertise? Right, I'm just going to write those down and share them because they're going to be valuable to people. If you aren't able to create a decent looking image around it, if you're not able to speak confidently to camera, if you're not able to write effectively with those ideas, then use AI tools, use partners, use whoever's got those specific bits of expertise to help with those bits, but get in the habit of generating ideas and feeding them into an engine that turns your ideas into consumable content. And that's the kind of the crux of that marketing engine. And the way that, I mean, if I just give our example internally for it. So we've got a small 6 people in our central team and a pool of trainers and advisors who work with our clients, an associate model essentially. And we are able to put out consistently 10 to 20 pieces of content a month, most of the ideas coming from me and my business partner. And the total time that I personally put into that engine is an hour or 2 a month, because we've got an efficient process where I take ideas and turn them into end content, a process that we've like refined and honed over time. But by putting that much content out, we then get followers, we attract subscribers, and we get, I mean, our target for inbound leads for this month is 19 inbound leads. That's what we're wanting to hit in the month of March. And we pretty consistently hit 2 to 5 inbounds a week, which is plenty for us at the level we want to grow at the moment. But we've got there by building that marketing engine that allows us to produce stuff efficiently and use our time efficiently, so that we're really focused in on the bit that is critical, which is the ideas and the insights come from those of us who are the experts. If you start generating ideas with AI, then you're immediately going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about.
Amen to that. I like that you talked a lot about inbounds. I think that's the ideal place, right? You want people, as you mentioned earlier, as a consultant, you want your phone to ring all the time from people wanting to work with you. I also like that you kind of introduce sales as part of marketing, because at the end of the day, they are inherently intertwined. Talk to me about those skills as someone who is helping and teaching that to boutique consulting firm owners. One thing that I've understood from interviewing 180 is they hate selling. Most of them hate selling. They are experts. They love, developing this expertise and helping out clients and like doing what they're excellent at. But most people don't really like to sell. Most consultants don't like to sell. And one of my assumption is that it's hard to like something you're not good at. And once you start developing the skills and getting some results, you tend to hate it less, let's say. What are the skills that you need to develop in order to be able to, once you get this consistent flow of leads, like you, and Deri, by the way, those are impressive numbers, so that you can convert those leads into actual deals?
Yeah, I mean, so I that marketing sales distinction, I see marketing as everything that gets you into that first conversation with somebody, which could be with an existing client, like, because a lot of the marketing content just keeps you front of mind with people who've worked with you before as well, or lets them understand that there are other ways that you can help them too. But like, once you get into that first conversation, you're dead right about the fear of sales and the resistance that a lot of consultants feel towards selling, particularly the more what we see is the more technical you are as a consultant. Like if you're in the software engineering development end, or you're in a particularly technical domain, or you're quite academic in your leaning, the more sales, like you go through this kind of identity shift of, I'm an expert to I'm a consultant, and that can feel quite uncomfortable. And I've got a client who's a 20-year consulting veteran who sells 8 figures a year of consulting revenue and still feels awkward identifying himself as a management consultant. Like, he feels embarrassed about that, and that's a blocker for him when it comes to sales. So some people feel awkward getting to consultant, right? And then you get to then turn those people into identifying as salespeople is a much harder journey. So what we've found to work in that domain is to shift the mindset around it so that they are not thinking about sales as a pushy, sleazy, dishonest, inauthentic set of activity, but they're thinking about sales as, we're consulting to this person, we're advising them, and we're just asking an extra couple of questions at the end. I remember when I was at Bain, I was working with a senior partner. I was a manager at Bain, getting involved in sales conversations for the first time and really trying to feel my way. And I had that fear. I was like, how the hell do we go and ask someone for a couple of £1 million to solve their problem? And this senior partner said, I'd really like to separate the advisory conversation from the sales conversation. And that's really stuck with me. And I think that's really critical. So if you get yourself in a headspace of sales is advising, sales is about structuring a complicated problem that the client doesn't know how to solve. It's about making them understand that there is a potential solution here, that the challenge or the opportunity they think they're missing, or the thing that's causing them pain at the moment, like, you can bring a solution to that, and helping them understand that solution and what it will take to get there. And then at the end, the question is just like, how confident do you feel solving this by yourselves? And then instead of you feeling like you're pushing your support on them and pushing for a sale, they say, do you know what we could do with some help? Like, what would that look like? And it takes so much of the pain out again. And like, so much of this stuff is about, people feel a lot of resistance to putting themselves out there, to asking for money, to having a sales conversation. So think about ways you can lower your natural resistance to that stuff and make it easier to do. And you're dead right that once you've figured that out and you see sales as helping people, and like writing a proposal is just confirming the work that's going to be done, and the pricing naturally flows from that itself, and then you get a lot more comfortable with it. And actually you realize, I'm a consultant because I'm an expert. I can help solve problems for people, and selling is finding more people that I can help. And like, if you ask people to reframe it as like, do you want to go and help some people? Most people will say yes. Like, that's a large part of the reason I'm in consulting in the first place. So that mindset shift is absolutely critical. Now, there's some technical skill around how you structure a conversation to get to that point, how you handle particular objections, how you write a really good proposal, how you make sure that you haven't forgotten to navigate through procurement and being able to get on board so you can actually do the work, etc. But the foundational bit that really matters is that mindset shift to be positive about the idea of helping people, and realizing that most of the core of that is actually consulting to those people, help figure out what the solution is to their problem.
I really like the selling is consulting with a few extra questions at the end. I like that a lot. I think so. I was about to, kind of challenge you on okay, but what does that mean to have a change in mindset, right? Because, okay, I see, I get it, but like, how do you apply that as a consultant? I think asking at the end, hey, how comfortable do you feel doing this on your own, is such a great question. Because if there is a need, they will pull you in. And if you feel comfortable, you can also say, if they don't seem to be pulling you in, like, hey, like, we actually help people like you get, from where you are to so-and-so results. Like, is this something you'd be interested in? But I like the asking the question so that they pull you in and it doesn't feel too sleazy or too salesy.
Yeah, the key is to actually ask the question. Though, like one of the things that the trap consultants fall into is giving free advice. And having another conversation and more free advice and more free advice. So you've got to learn to draw that line and say, right, we're now in a territory where, like, if you want to carry on, we're going to have to put some terms in place. And that's the risk. But if you get used to what those questions are, then they're pretty easy to ask at the end of a conversation like that.
100%. So obviously a consulting firm once you have the expertise and the acquisition nailed down, which, yeah, I get it, that's what a business is. But I like to identify what type of business you're in when you are in an industry or certain kind of work. As a consultant, when you start growing, you're in the recruiting, hiring, training, and retaining business. It's people, right? It's bringing in the right people with the right expertise who eventually also do the selling for you. I'm not sure how it used to work at Bain when you were there, Deri, but the big fours would be like the partners, the directors, the senior managers are the ones delivering or managing the project, but also selling.
Yeah.
How do you start developing those marketing and sales capability within your team of consultants as you grow and as you cannot, take all the sales, or just because you don't have the relationship with the clients because one of your senior manager or whatsoever has it? How do you help your team build this capability as well?
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. Actually, I kind of often talk about consulting firms play in two markets. They've got the market for clients and the market for talent, and you can't ignore the market for talent. But when you get those people on board, then you want to accelerate their time to effectiveness. And that includes, particularly if you're hiring people mid or senior level, includes how quickly you can get them supporting your sales efforts. I think the critical part here is to be really precise about the expectations that you've got of them. So depending on how their level in the company and the types of relationships they've got with clients, you might be at one end expecting that they're going to bring in 2, 3, 4 million a year of revenue and they're bringing in new logos, et cetera, et cetera. But for most of the firm, that's not the case. For the more junior end, their involvement in the sales process can be as simple as keep an ear out for opportunities. We're going to explain to you what an opportunity looks like and sounds like and make sure that you can identify it. And if you spot an opportunity, come and tell us about it, escalate it in some way, report it internally. And if you do that, then maybe you get to work on the proposal, maybe there's some other recognition within your compensation framework, whatever. But the habit is to be keeping an ear out for opportunities, not expecting that people are going to proactively identify them and uncover them. And then just ratchet those expectations up over time. And the thing I think that a lot of firms miss is how long-term some of this stuff is, and the need to start building that depth of expertise, building the network, building personal reputation 2-3 years in advance of the point where you get promoted to a level where suddenly you're expected to sell £500,000 of revenue this year and £1 million next year and £2 million the year after. Like, if you just hit that level thinking sales isn't my job yet, it's going to be way more painful than if you say sales will be my job in the future. And right now, what I'm going to do is make sure I stay in touch with all of the clients that I work with day to day, who aren't buyers yet, but in 10 years' time, they will be. That I'm going to start publishing once a quarter, once a month on LinkedIn. I'm going to start a blog in my area of expertise because I'm so interested in it. Start those bits early. And then when you get to the place where you've got a revenue target, it's much, much easier. And the firms should really be supporting people to do that because it's in their interests as well.
100%. It's funny, the way you describe it is, I understand how that's the big firms work as well. That's literally it. And if you set clear expectations and incentives at the beginning of the fiscal year to the people of your team who you want to, or could potentially bring you, if not business, at least opportunities that you can then convert, people start bringing you that business. There is something I want to go back from our conversation there, which was some consultants have been burnt before on certain marketing channels or when they tried some acquisition channel. And so there can be multiple reasons to this. Of course, there are people who just don't do a good job out there at helping out consultants. I think one of the reasons sometimes maybe their expectations in terms of timeline wasn't just realistic. If we take your example, right, you've been building your presence on LinkedIn for like the last 5 years. And if we go on your page and we see you've been accelerating in the last 2. What should consultants understand about time expectation when building that visibility and that reputation that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point. I mean, we were running some sales training last year at some point, a group of like 20 partners at a firm, and I remember one of them saying, like, I don't want to post on LinkedIn unless I'm very confident I'm going to get at least 1 or 2 leads directly from that post. And the mismatch of expectation versus reality that he had was so extreme that he just wasn't doing anything. And you're not going to get leads from a single post. You're probably not going to get leads from a 3-month burst of posting. So in my experience, this is a 18 to 24 month commitment to putting yourself out there. Well, and I'm particularly talking about the idea of building personal reputation here. So there are ways that you can accelerate it that I'll touch on in a sec, but the number one thing here is to build habits and consistency in putting yourself out there on a regular basis, so that and enjoying that journey. Like, the idea is that you're sharing stuff that's useful to people, they respond, you have a bit of conversation in the comments, maybe you get another question, you get some bit of content you can share with other people. Like, if you don't enjoy that and you can't find a way to enjoy that, then it is going to feel like a bit of a grind. There are some ways you can accelerate that timeline a little bit. So firstly, obviously, like, just being super proactive about it, like identifying who you want to build relationships with, connecting with them digitally or in person, like building all of that. Commenting on other people's content. So if there are people in your industry who are sharing good thoughts, like, comment on there, be really visible in other people's channels and be seen like that. As borrowing people's audiences, like appearing on someone else's podcast, for example, is a good way of building that visibility and shortcutting it. But even if you do all of that, and the other thing you can do is you can pay to get that attention, like using LinkedIn ads or Google ads or whatever is appropriate. It's paying to be a sponsor of a network and a community. All of that can shortcut it a little bit, but there really is no substitute for consistently putting out a consistent point of view on a specific problem. It's got to be built on a proposition that's really sharp and clear. And just 18 months, give it 18 months. And if you're committed to a career as a consultant, or you've founded your own firm, like, that shouldn't be an intimidating amount of time to start seeing the phone ring and inbound leads coming in.
Okay, there are so many things I want to double down on here, but I'm also conscious of time. So I love this. Time expectation needs to be set clearly at the beginning of a project, for sure. I like your time frame. When we talk about podcasts, we say exactly the same. Like, building a brand is going to take 2 to 3 years minimum. But then again, it depends on the goal that you want to achieve. Another thing I just want to quickly touch upon, especially because I know a lot of consultants look into LinkedIn or want to be active on LinkedIn. Posting is a thing. Posting valuable content is another. But then the real magic happens when you, as you just said, they interact with other people in your niche, target accounts, but not only, people who are also active, who will reciprocate, give visibility to your post by commenting, interacting on it. Another thing that I know from a colleague who is very, very active on LinkedIn, DMing. Like, it's one thing to build an audience and actually be active out there, but then you have some indicators. You have some people liking, engaging, commenting on your posts. You have some people visiting your profile, potentially even following you or adding you as a connection. And if they are relevant to you, this is where the magic happens. It's actually reaching out in a way exactly as Deri described, which is not salesy or pushy, but more like, hey, so that you engage, thank you so much for engaging with so-and-so post around XYZ. What motivated you to do so? How can I help? Tell me more. And having that relationship building tool takes time, but can get some pretty decent and good results if you do it for a long time enough. Maybe to wrap this up, Deri, if a boutique consulting firm owners wanted to grow over the next 3 to 5 years, what capabilities should they prioritize building first, in your experience?
Yeah, like, what's the kind of the absolute foundational cornerstone of growth? So the thing that is most important and most often missing, and I'll just keep it really focused, is the crispness of their proposition. So if you don't have a super sharp, validated proposition, and what I mean by proposition is a proven solution to a specific problem for a specific client. Like if you don't have that really crisp and clear, like everything else is going to be difficult. Like your marketing is going to be unfocused. You're not going to know who you're talking to. You're not going to be able to prove value. So if you don't have that, and most firms don't, because most firms lead on capability or the sector that they operate in, not that niche of we know you and we know the problem you have and we've got a solution to it and we know the solution works because we do it consistently over time. That's the bedrock of your expertise documented. That is the number one thing to get super clear on and make sure everyone in your team is clear on it and that it drives through all of your marketing and sales conversations. And so if you don't have that, and most firms don't, that's the number one thing that's going to drive your growth over the next 3 to 5 years. And to just reinforce that a little bit, it used to be the case that firms bought consultants because of the brand of the firm. 85% of buyers now value specific niche expertise as the number one thing they care about when they're buying. So your proposition has to articulate that, and that's what's going to open the door for your growth.
Deri Hughes, ladies and gentlemen. Deri, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Well, follow me on LinkedIn. As I say, I publish a load of content on there, or head to www.honeycombps.co.uk is our Honeycomb consulting skills training website. We've got we run webinars. We've got a free newsletter on there. And if you want to chat, you can book a call right in my diary and we can talk through what it takes to help your team become exceptional.
We'll put all the links in the description. Deri, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Feel like we could have done another hour or so of that chat. No problem.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see how the audience takes this one. But hey, who knows? Maybe there will be an encore. Deri, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.